It is 11 p.m. You just put your baby down for the third time tonight. You watched their eyes close, you held your breath. You counted to 30, you slowly, millimeter by millimeter, lowered them into the crib. You pulled your hands away. You backed toward the door like you were defusing a bomb, and the moment your hand touched the door handle, the crying started again. You have not slept more than 2 consecutive hours in 11 weeks. You have tried every sleep training method the internet has recommended. You have read 4 books. You have a white noise machine, a blackout curtain, a swaddle, a sleep sack, a specific lullaby playlist, and a $300 bassinet that claims to mimic the womb. And your baby still will not sleep. You are not failing. Your baby is not broken, but there is something nobody in Western parenting culture told you. Something Korean mothers have understood and practiced for centuries about what a baby's sleep system actually needs to switch off. And it is not another gadget, it is not another method. It is a fundamentally different understanding of what sleep is and what a baby needs to feel safe enough to surrender to it. By the end of this video, you will have a complete Korean baby sleep framework. Every step, every timing, every practice that you can begin using tonight. Not a quick fix, a complete system. The same system Korean mothers have used for generations to raise babies who sleep. Stay with me. Before we talk about what Korean mothers do, we need to talk honestly about what Western sleep culture gets fundamentally wrong, because the problem is not your execution. The problem is the premise. Western baby sleep culture is built on one core belief: that sleep is a skill a baby must learn independently. That the goal of sleep training is to teach a baby to fall asleep alone and stay asleep alone. And that any parental involvement in the sleep process is a crutch that creates dependency. This belief has produced an entire industry. Sleep training programs, cry-it-out methods, graduated extinction techniques, scheduled feeding, strict nap windows, sleep consultants charging hundreds of dollars to tell exhausted parents to let their baby cry for increasingly longer intervals until the baby, out of sheer exhaustion, stops signaling for help. And for some babies in some families, it works. The crying stops, the baby sleeps, and the parents, too depleted to question the method, call it success. But here's what neuroscience tells us about what actually happened in that baby's brain. Studies from the University of Notre Dame's Mother-Baby Behavioral Sleep Laboratory found that when babies stop crying during cry-it-out sleep training, their cortisol levels, the stress hormone, remain just as elevated as when they were crying. The baby learned to stop signaling. They did not learn to feel safe. Their nervous system remained in distress. They simply gave up communicating it. Korean mothers looked at this approach and saw something that generations of cultural observation had already shown them. A baby who is taught that their signals will not be answered does not learn independence. They learn that the world is not reliably safe. And a nervous system that does not feel reliably safe cannot truly rest. In Korean culture, baby sleep is understood through a completely different philosophical lens. There is an ancient Korean concept called sujeon, which means the sacred surrender. The idea that sleep is not something a baby does independently. It is something a baby is carried into by the emotional safety of the people around them. In Korean understanding, a baby cannot independently surrender to sleep any more than they can independently regulate their own nervous system, which we established in our earlier videos they absolutely cannot. The prefrontal cortex is undeveloped. The nervous system is external. The baby borrows regulation from the caregiver. And nowhere is this more true than at the threshold of sleep. Think about what sleep actually requires neurologically. The brain must power down from alert to drowsy to deep sleep. For an adult with a fully developed nervous system, this is manageable. For a baby whose brain does not have the neurological architecture to self-regulate, this transition from alert to asleep is one of the most neurologically demanding moments of their day. It requires the nervous system to feel safe enough to release control completely. And a nervous system that has not been given enough regulation throughout the day cannot manufacture that safety at bedtime on demand. Korean mothers have always understood that you cannot manufacture sleep. You create the conditions in which sleep becomes neurologically possible, and then you allow it to arrive. They call this approach jal janda, which loosely translates as sleeping well together. Not teaching the baby to sleep, creating the conditions in which the whole family sleeps well together. And the framework they use to create those conditions has 5 specific elements. Before I walk you through each element, I want you to notice something about all of them. None of them are about getting the baby to sleep faster. All of them are about preparing the baby's nervous system so that sleep becomes neurologically inevitable. That distinction changes everything. Element 1. Sujeon Uisigen, the sacred sleep preparation hour. The first element of the Korean sleep framework is perhaps the most different from anything Western sleep culture teaches. It is called Sujeon Uisigen, the sleep preparation hour, and it begins 60 minutes before you want your baby to sleep, not 10 minutes, not 30, 60. In Western sleep culture, we put babies to sleep. We follow a short routine: bath, feed, song, bed, and then we expect the baby's nervous system to transition from whatever stimulation level it was operating at to deep sleep in 15 minutes. And we wonder why it does not work. Korean mothers think about sleep preparation the way a musician thinks about warming up before a performance. You do not walk cold onto the stage and perform at your best. You prepare. You warm down. You create the internal conditions in which the performance becomes possible. The Sujeon Uisigan hour is the warm-down hour. For the entire 60 minutes before sleep time, the environment and interaction style changes completely. The lighting drops. Korean mothers specifically reduce light levels 60 minutes before sleep, not to darkness but to significantly lower and warmer tones. This is not a cultural preference. It is biology. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, begins producing in response to reduced light. Every minute of bright light in the hour before sleep suppresses melatonin production. The Korean practice of dim lighting from 60 minutes out gives the baby's melatonin system a full hour to build towards sleep readiness. The sound environment changes, voices lower, television, if present, is turned off. The noise level of the household drops steadily across the hour. Not suddenly, but gradually, like a slow fade rather than an abrupt cut. The type of physical interaction changes. The fast, stimulating play of the day gives way to slow rocking, slow walking, gentle holding. The baby's sensory system is being progressively downregulated, moved from high stimulation alert toward low stimulation drowsy, before any attempt at actual sleep begins. And critically, the parent's own nervous system is intentionally settled during this hour. Because as we established in our earlier videos, your baby borrows regulation from yours. If you are rushing, stressed, and tense during the sleep preparation hour, your baby's nervous system reads that energy and stays alert. Your practical starting point: move your baby's sleep preparation to 60 minutes before the intended sleep time. Drop the lights, lower your voice, slow your movements. Begin the warm down. And do not pick up your phone during this hour. Element 2. Ondal warmth, the body temperature. Secret. The second element comes directly from one of Korea's most distinctive architectural traditions, the ondal. Ondal is the ancient Korean underfloor heating system that has kept Korean homes warm from the ground up for thousands of years. And it taught Korean mothers something extraordinary about baby sleep that Western nursery design completely misses. Babies sleep most deeply when their core body temperature drops slightly, and their peripheral body temperature, their hands and feet, is warm. This is basic thermoregulation science. The body prepares for deep sleep by dilating blood vessels in the extremities, routing warm blood to the hands and feet, which releases core body heat and lowers overall core temperature slightly. This core temperature drop is one of the primary neurological triggers for deep sleep onset. Ondal homes, warm from the floor up, naturally kept babies in this optimal thermal state: warm extremities, slightly cooler core, the perfect sleep onset temperature profile. Western nursery design does the opposite. We focus on cooling the room. We are told room temperature should be between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. But we often underdress babies or overcool rooms, leaving extremities cold. Cold hands and feet signal the nervous system that the environment is unsafe, activating a subtle stress response that makes deep sleep neurologically harder to achieve. The Korean ondal principle applied to modern nursery care is simple. Before putting your baby to sleep, make sure their hands and feet are warm. Not hot. Warm. A warm bath. 20 minutes before sleep achieves this beautifully. The bath raises peripheral temperature. The post-bath cool-down drops core temperature slightly. And both changes together create the optimal thermal conditions for deep sleep onset. Korean mothers also practice what is called the badabok wrap, a specific way of dressing the baby that keeps the abdomen and feet warm while allowing the head and chest to cool slightly. You do not need a traditional badabok. The principle is warm feet, warm belly, slightly cooler head. Check this before every sleep attempt. Element 3, Hamka Jam, the co-regulation. Sleep principle. The third element is the most culturally different from Western sleep practice and the one most likely to make Western-trained parents uncomfortable. It is called Hamka Jam, sleeping together, and it reflects the Korean understanding that a baby's nervous system cannot self-regulate into sleep any more than it can self-regulate out of distress. Now, before you hear co-sleeping and immediately think of the Western safety debate, this is important. Hamka Jam is not necessarily about sharing a sleep surface. It is about the principle of parental nervous system proximity during the sleep transition. The physical arrangement can vary. The principle stays constant. Here is what neuroscience tells us about this principle. Research from James McKenna's Mother-Baby Behavioral Sleep Laboratory at Notre Dame found that when mothers and babies sleep in close proximity, their breathing rates, heart rates, and sleep cycle stages synchronize. The baby literally borrows the mother's physiological rhythms. The mother's steady sleeping nervous system provides a regulatory anchor for the baby's less developed one. This is why babies who sleep in complete isolation frequently wake more often, not because they are undertired or overstimulated, but because their nervous system loses its regulatory anchor in the absence of parental proximity and signals distress in response. Korean mothers practice Hamka Jam on a spectrum. Some families co-sleep safely following established guidelines. Others practice room sharing, baby in their own sleep space, but in the same room. Others practice what Korean mothers call the samsori method, staying in the room during the initial sleep transition, allowing the baby to hear and feel the parent's calm breathing and presence until sleep is established, then quietly leaving. The samsori method is perhaps the most practical for Western families. Stay in the room, breathe slowly and audibly. Let your baby hear your calm, regulated nervous system settling into rest. Do not interact. Do not stimulate. Simply be present and calm. For most babies, the samsori method reduces sleep onset time dramatically, because the nervous system regulatory anchor is present without creating the physical proximity that makes independent sleep transfers difficult. Element 4. Keikumul Gunan, the dream drawing ritual. The fourth element is one of the most beautiful practices in the entire Korean sleep framework. It is called Keikumul Gunan, which translates as drawing dreams. And it is a specific bedtime storytelling practice that Korean mothers have used for generations to guide a baby's nervous system from waking to sleep through the power of narrative and imagery. In Western bedtime culture, we read books, which are externally paced and visually stimulating. And then we turn off the light and expect the baby's brain to stop. Korean mothers do something completely different in the final 15 minutes before sleep. They narrate a slow, peaceful, sensory-rich imaginary journey for the baby in a low, rhythmic voice. Not an exciting story, a slow drift. Something like, we are walking through a quiet forest. The trees are very tall and very still. The air is soft and warm. We can hear a small river nearby. The water moves very slowly over smooth stones. Everything is still. Everything is peaceful. You are safe here. You are very warm. We are going to rest now. The content of the narration is not the point. The rhythm, pace, and sensory specificity are the point. Here is the neuroscience. Research from Harvard Sleep Laboratory found that low-frequency rhythmic auditory input, specifically a slow, steady human voice in a low register, directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, the system that must be dominant for sleep to occur. Fast or high-pitched voice keeps the sympathetic nervous system, the alert and reactive system, engaged. The Keikumul Gunan narration is essentially a vocal nervous system downregulation tool. The slow, low rhythmic voice does to the brain what the cheon 60 beats per minute sway does for a crying baby. It matches the nervous system where it is and then gently leads it toward the target state. You do not need a script. You do not need to be a storyteller. You need a slow, low voice, peaceful imagery, and 15 uninterrupted minutes. That is all. Element 5, Ilgwa Bam. The day builds the night. The fifth and most important element of the Korean sleep framework is the one that happens not at bedtime, but throughout the entire day. Korean mothers call it Ilgwa Bam, the day and the night, reflecting their understanding that the quality of a baby's sleep is primarily determined by what happened in the 16 hours before bedtime, rather than the 30 minutes of the bedtime routine itself. This is the element Western sleep culture almost completely misses. We focus obsessively on the bedtime routine, the bath, the feed, the song, the method, while the daytime factors that actually determine sleep quality go completely unaddressed. Korean mothers regulate 4 specific daytime factors in service of nighttime sleep. Light exposure. Korean babies are taken outside into natural daylight in the morning, not because of fresh air, but because of circadian rhythm regulation. Morning light exposure is the single most powerful signal to the baby's biological clock, establishing the difference between day and night. Babies who receive morning light exposure settle into day-night rhythm weeks faster than those kept indoors. Feeding rhythm. Korean mothers feed on a rhythm that front-loads caloric intake during daylight hours. The baby takes larger, more frequent feeds during the day, ensuring full caloric needs are met before nighttime. So the baby's hunger system is not driving nighttime waking. This is not strict scheduling. It is intentional daytime feeding density. Movement and stimulation. Korean mothers ensure the day includes adequate physical interaction, carrying, movement, social engagement, which builds genuine sleep pressure. A baby who has not had enough movement and stimulation during the day has not built sufficient adenosine, the sleep pressure chemical, and will not sleep well regardless of the bedtime routine. Napping architecture. Korean mothers protect specific nap windows during the day, ensuring the baby neither oversleeps in naps, which reduces nighttime sleep pressure, nor undersleeps, which creates overtiredness, making night sleep harder. The nap architecture is designed to arrive at bedtime with the baby tired enough to sleep, but not so overtired that the cortisol stress response has activated. Your practical Ilgwa BAM starting point. 10 minutes of natural morning light. Front-load feeding during daylight. Ensure adequate physical movement and interaction throughout the day, and protect the last nap ending at least 3 to 4 hours before intended bedtime. The night begins at sunrise. Korean mothers have always known this. Now let us see why these 5 elements work as a complete system. Sujeon Uai Sigan, the sleep preparation hour, down-regulates the nervous system and builds melatonin. Ondal warmth, the thermal preparation, creates the body temperature conditions for deep sleep onset. Hamkajam, the proximity principle, provides the nervous system regulatory anchor that allows the baby's undeveloped self-regulation to rest. Kumilgunan, the dream drawing, activates the parasympathetic nervous system through rhythmic vocal input. And Ilgwa Bomb, the day builds the night, ensures the 16-hour foundation that makes quality sleep neurologically possible. Together, they address every biological and neurological factor involved in infant sleep: light, temperature, nervous system regulation, autonomic nervous system state, circadian rhythm, sleep pressure. None of these factors is addressed by the Western sleep training approach. All of them are addressed by the Korean framework. Not because Korean mothers studied sleep science, but because generations of careful observation showed them what actually works. Here is what this framework looks like 3 weeks after you begin using it consistently. It is 7 p.m. Your baby's sleep preparation hour began at 6 p.m. The lights dropped an hour ago. The house has been quiet and slow. You gave your baby a warm bath at 6:40 p.m. Warm hands and feet checked. You dressed them in a way that keeps their belly and feet warm. You are now lying beside your baby in a dim room. You have been narrating a slow, peaceful Kumil Gunan drift for 12 minutes. Your voice low and slow and rhythmic. Your own breathing has slowed. Your own nervous system has settled. And your baby, whose cortisol levels have been declining for a full hour, whose melatonin has been building since the lights dropped, whose thermal preparation is complete, whose nervous system is anchored to yours, whose day included morning light and adequate feeding and movement, your baby is asleep. Not in 45 minutes of crying, not in 3 rounds of graduated extinction, in 12 minutes of quiet presence. And here is the part that transforms everything about your experience of parenthood. You are not outside the door listening anxiously. You are not in the living room rigid with guilt about whether to go back in. You are not watching a monitor with your heart in your throat. You are here, present, calm, and your baby is asleep beside you. 3 weeks ago, you were defusing a bomb every night for 45 minutes, and then lying in bed, unable to sleep yourself, because the anxiety of whether the baby would wake again kept your own nervous system in alert mode. Tonight, you are asleep by 7:45 p.m. You wake once at 2 a.m. for a feed. Your baby settles back in 8 minutes, You sleep again until 5:30 a.m. You do not remember the last time you slept that well. Korean mothers call this pyeongan, which means peaceful rest, not just for the baby, for the whole family, because they have always understood that a mother who does not sleep cannot mother well, and a system that does not serve the whole family is not a good system. Before you try this tonight, 3 mistakes I want you to avoid. The first mistake is starting the sleep preparation too late. 60 minutes is not a suggestion. It is a neurological requirement. Melatonin production needs time. Nervous system downregulation needs time. If you start the preparation 20 minutes before sleep, you are asking the baby's biology to do in 20 minutes what it needs 60 minutes to accomplish. Start at 60 minutes. Every night, without exception. The second mistake is inconsistency in the first week. The Korean framework trains the baby's biological clock and nervous system through pattern recognition. Your baby's brain is looking for consistent signals, consistent timing, consistent sensory environment, consistent parental energy. The first week of inconsistency will produce inconsistent results. The third week of consistency will produce sleep. Hold the pattern even when the first few nights are hard. The third mistake is trying to implement this while you are anxious about sleep. Your baby's nervous system reads yours. If you are lying beside your baby during the sensory phase, rigid with anxiety about whether they are going to sleep, your nervous system is sending alert signals, not calm ones. Before you enter the sleep preparation hour, take 3 visible breaths. Lower your own energy. Remind yourself, I am not getting this baby to sleep. I am creating the conditions in which sleep becomes neurologically inevitable. Then begin. Your baby is not fighting sleep. Their nervous system has not yet been given the conditions to feel safe enough to surrender to it. Sujon ui sigan. Ondol warmth, hamke jam, kumail gunan, ilgwa bam. 5 elements, 1 framework. Built by Korean mothers across generations. Validated by sleep neuroscience. And available to you starting with tonight's bedtime. You have been working so hard. You have been trying everything. And now you have something different. Not another trick, not another method, but a complete understanding of what your baby's nervous system actually needs to rest. Start with the 60-minute preparation hour tonight. Just that one element. See what happens. If this gave you something real, something you needed tonight, share it with another exhausted parent right now. Because somewhere a parent is lying on their bathroom floor at midnight, wondering what they are doing wrong. And this might be exactly what they need to hear. And if you want more Korean wisdom for raising secure, sleeping, thriving children, subscribe to Korean Mom Way every single week. Because there is so much more coming. You have got this. And tonight, your whole family is going to sleep.